Hello, welcome to a very important video. Today we're talking about the Go Battle League Season of Light, otherwise known as Season 12 update for both the interlude as well as Season 11. We had very few changes because they intended to try to keep the competitive circuit quite, at least somewhat consistent. They ended up adding things like Obstagoon as well as Buzzwall, but banned Buzzwall, so we noticed that they stopped carrying near the end, which was kind of weird, but that's besides the point. Today we're talking about all the changes with the Season 12 update. And my first thoughts is that a lot of the update was focused on adding new moves to old Pokemon, rather than trying to balance Pokemon out or balance a lot of overpowered moves such as Poison Fang, Shadow Claw, Counter. There were some really important nerfs and some really good ones, including to Registeel and Walrein. However, I was hoping for more, balancing changes rather than adding things, trying to shuffle it up. Because if some things are still extremely powerful, you're still going to see those things overpower even the new moves or new combinations. However, that doesn't mean things like Nidoqueen isn't nerfed or Shadow Claw isn't nerfed, because every addition to a meta, to a Pokemon, will change something. When we have a lot of Psychic Fangs additions onto a lot of Pokemon, then Psychic deals super effective damage to Poison. We should theoretically see more answers to Nidoqueen, and more normal types would resist Shadow Claw, and that should somewhat balance out the meta on its own. So don't be too bummed about, certain moves not being nerfed. Also, we're going to be talking about relevant Pokemon only. We're not going to talk about, if Zap Cannon is being nerfed. We're not going to talk about Zapdos or Porygon because that doesn't affect the meta itself. So we have the official Pokemon or Niantic Pokemon Go website here talking about the different features, the Go Battle days, as well as the ranking system. And at the very bottom we have the new moves, as well as some of the teased, no real numbers, some of the teased changes for these moves. We have new additions to Pokemon, many of them not very important. And then we do have changes to both the Great, Ultra, and Masters because of this. So what we're going to go through right now is first talking about moves that are pre-existing that they have made weaker, and then we're going to talk about moves that they have made stronger. We're going to talk about third the 2 new moves added to the game, and then finally we're going to talk about all of the Pokemon that learn new moves in that order. So first move we're going to be talking about is a fast move, Rollout. Rollout is going to have its energy reduced from 4.66 energy per turn, likely to 4.33 energy per turn. We can see a very similar move in the form of Snarl, so it would be generating the same energy as Snarl, but doing less damage. I'm okay with this because high energy generation, as high as 4.66, would lead to other, Registeel-like situations. And even though we don't use Regirock that much, it's still a really powerful Pokemon. So that level of energy generation can get extremely annoying, especially on the Pokemon that it will be on. That being Dunsparce and Miltank. These are 2 new Pokemon, well, 2 Pokemon that are going to learn this move moving forward. We previously had a Alolan Golem learn it in Community Day, but there's never really a reason you would want to use that move over Volt Switch. So Miltank will now be the fastest body slammer there is. However, I don't think that's going to be a big problem because steel and fighting types are easily going to counter Miltank. However, Dunsparce actually has a moveset of Drill Run and Rock Slide, which means it has insane coverage for both steel types, those tanks, and flying types, making its only natural weakness fighting. So that is going to be a problem, and that is something you want to keep an eye out for. So Zap Cannon, I'm going to move forward a little bit and talk about charge moves because these are also nerfs to the moves. So Zap Cannon is a direct attack to Registeel. The 100% chance of attack drop is likely going to be reduced to 50%. It's unreasonable to make it, somewhere in between that. It's kind of awkward. But it's only an issue for Registeel because of how much energy generation it generates. So it is a warranted nerf to both Zap Cannon and Registeel. However, because of how expensive it is, not a lot of Pokemon can make use of it anyway, so it's not affecting other Pokemon. Other Pokemon that Registeel will lose to because it doesn't have a guaranteed defense attack drop is Sableye and Deoxys, because those Pokemon would be resisting fast moves or charge moves or be dealing super effective, Deoxys in the form of counter will be much better at dealing with Registeel because that's dealing super effective damage. It's supposed to be able to beat those Pokemon. So it potentially allows Registeel to move back into the Flash Cannon moveset, but it is unlikely for the time being because Zap Cannon still gives you a lot of coverage for Jellicent, Azumarill, still solid coverage for flying type Pokemon as well. Next move is going to be Icicle Spear, a move that is exclusive to Walrein. It's going to have its energy increased from 35 to 40 energy. However, this doesn't actually make it that bad because Icicle Spear requires, I believe, 5 fast moves to get to, Powder Snows, and then 4 on the next one. However, because of the synergy between Powder Snow and Icicle Spear, you always need 5 now for 40 energy, 8 energy per turn, I believe. So you're not actually slowing down Walrein to its first charge move. You're slowing it down to the second charge move, and it only affects it every once in a while. It makes baiting and nuking a little more difficult, especially when you can't stack both 65 energy Earthquake and 35 energy Icicle Spear together as soon as you come out of a matchup. So that doesn't make it that much worse, but it is reasonable because Walrein is quite powerful. It has, with the increased energy gain, it means the biggest problem is not being able to bait as efficiently. Saving 5 energy per turn, or 5 energy every time you bait, is going to be quite a bit, especially when you are pacing against something like Galarian Stunfisk or Registeel to Focus Blast, and you're baiting. Every little bit counts because they can threaten you much better than you can with your own resisted Icicle Spears and stuff like that. Lickitung is also something that won't have too much trouble with it because Lickitung matchup was close enough already and borderline winning. It will struggle a little more against dealing with fighting type Pokemon. Not being able to outpace, counter cross chop, counter power up punch is also going to be a problem. So those issues are not as big of a deal because you wouldn't really want something that type-wise loses to those Pokemon to be able to beat them. So if you have some kind of energy lead, it's still something that can win those matchups, but it is totally warranted. But for both Great, Ultra, and Master, Walrein has been very impactful since its introduction. Ominous Wind is going to be the final nerf for the moves. We have the move effect being reduced from 2 stages of attack and 2 stages of defense down to 1 stage for each. This is just a direct nerf. It reduces its effects by half. And part of the reason why is because they're also changing Ancient Power and Silver, when we're going to talk about it in a bit. But it makes this much less luck and bait dependent, because if you get that boost, there is almost no way for you to lose that matchup, even if you are, you know, taking super effective damage. It is almost impossible to lose if you get it right off the bat. However, just because it got nerfed to the ground, it does no damage, its effect kind of sucks, the chance of proccing is very low, doesn't mean it won't be used, because Giratina and Spiritomb are two of the Pokemon that have to use it. It has no better charge move, and that's something you'll notice about both Ancient Power and Silverwind. It has no other charge move, no better charge move for you to use, such as, you know, Togekiss with Ancient Power. You have to use these moves because there's no better option. So this shouldn't really change much. So back to fast moves, we have Quick Attack. They are buffing a couple of moves that have been around for a very long time. Quick Attack is going to directly affect Alolan Raticate, Sylveon, Victini potentially. Virizion in Ultra is actually quite exciting. Vulpix in Little Cup is going to be extremely annoying. Moves that, you know, additions that don't really matter is Zacian, Zamazenta, and Diggersby, because they have better energy gain. You're not really looking for super effective quick attacks, which it doesn't exist. Quick attack normal type moves do not deal super effective to anything. So you're not really trying to deal fast move damage with your fast move that is meant to deal energy or generate energy, unless it is one of those very unique scenarios where it just needs that little bit of edge, where your fast moves are usually normally resisted, or your charge move set doesn't knock them out quite a bit. So what I predict will happen is that Quick Attack goes from 3.5 energy to 4 energy per turn. It is going to make it the same as Vine Whip, Powder Snow, moves that are extremely powerful and extremely popular right now as well. So matching the Quick Attack to Powder Snow and Vine Whip makes sense. It's not overpowered, especially since you don't have Quick Attack on overpowered Pokemon, and it's maybe Zacian and Master Cup. Like, that's like the big maybe. But apart from that, Virizion is going to get the biggest buff, you know, benefit from this the most, because Virizion's moveset was really lackluster before this. Now you can actually spam Leaf Blade and Sacred Sword quite heavily. Those are really, really good charge moves. So Ultra League Virizion, super solid. Sylveon has pretty solid charge moves to begin with Moonblast and Psyshock and a couple other things, but I think more Fairy and Psychic type moves. But that's a good move set. It doesn't really change the fact that you're a Fairy type attacker anyways, because that's such a good Fairy type charge moves. So being able to generate energy gives you a different playstyle. It wouldn't make it better than Charm, I would call it like a side grade. So Alolan Raticate will be good in themed metas. We've used it with Bite as well as with Quick Attack in previous metas. Being able to spam Hyper Fang much more efficiently is actually quite nice. Vulpix, really, really, really annoying. In the Little Cup, Body Slam is really powerful, especially when you have Weather Ball as well. 2 charge moves from a Shadow Vulpix will nuke everything, and when you give something that much energy generation, that's going to be scary. Victini is a big maybe, because fire types are still bad typings. And then, yeah, Diggersby could be good because it does have Stab Quick Attack. However, Mudshot energy gain, Earthquake is your primary charge move and primary source of damage, so you're probably not going to use that over Mudshot. So next move is Tackle. It will affect Castform, Greedent, Galarian, Weezing, and Miltank. Bronzor in the Little Cup is dumb enough with Tackle and Confusion. Both options pretty stupid. And then in the future, Carbink also has the move coded into its moveset. And Carbink is quite literally a Bastiodon that isn't weak to fighting. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. Actually, no, I'm very confident that I don't want to see that. So God help me. The expectation is changing the energy generation from 2 energy per turn to 3, making it like Air Slash, Lake Water Gun, just making it a very average move. So it could still be weak. It could still be, 2.5, 2 point something, I don't know. But it's very likely their intention is to make it a reasonable fast move. So a lot of these cast forms and ingredients, they aren't really looking for a, an average move. They have pretty good moves on their own, but it does give them some options, because I do know a lot of these cast forms struggle with dealing damage outside of their typing. For example, Sunny cast form, all fire type moves. Snowy cast form, all ice type moves. So Galarian Weezing might want this move in addition to the Fairywind that it has, because it might not be able to deal enough damage using charge moves alone. Fairywind is an energy-based fast move, and I don't think Galarian Weezing's charge move set is actually very good, so this might be an option. Miltank, on the other hand, will likely want Stab Tackle, so Miltank's probably the one Pokemon that really is happy with this move. It probably wants Stab Tackle over Rollout in maybe 50% of the situations. It would make it a slightly better Munchlax. Munchlax would be, dealing less damage with Lick, but having a little bit of a different type of effectiveness. So maybe it comes down to whether you are dealing with Steel types or maybe Psychic types or not. So moving forward, that's all of our fast moves for now, until we talk about the new moves. Increases or buffs to more charge moves would be in the form of Ancient Power, which is actually quite interesting, because all the Galarian birds have Ancient Power. This makes them more viable. Giratina Altered can also use Ancient Power, especially for, fire type Pokemon. Ultra League, hitting Talonflame with an Ancient Power will knock it out now. Aerodactyl in the Flying Cup makes, Rock Slide unnecessary. Ancient Power does damage now. It is increased from 45 damage to 60 damage, which is a kind of decent increase, but its numbers were low to begin with. And also its 10% chance for a 2-stage increase got reduced to 1. So, the original nerf to the damage of Ancient Power, Ominous Wind, and Silver Wind way back was actually made the move irrelevant, apart from those Pokemon that had to use it. For example, Giratina, Togekiss, stuff like that. It was overpowered and reasonably weak because of the 4-stage stat increase. Even if you do get that 10% increase, stat boost, it's still a 2-stage increase immediately, and it's still powerful, but it's not unbeatable at this point. So every Pokemon that uses these moves really have no choice but to pick this move, because there are no better options. So now, most Pokemon still won't choose to pick it up, but it will make more players bait a little less, because the cost of baiting is much lower with, even if you fail to bait or you throw the Ancient Power, it still does damage, at least some damage. And that's something that the Galarian birds will really like. The Galarian birds have pretty good fast moves, but what the problem is that it's only good charge move pre, Ancient Power buff, is the fact that all of them are pretty expensive. I believe Payback, Close Combat, Brave Bird, stuff like that. Those are all expensive and have quite terrible effects if you fail them. So Silverwind, pretty much the same thing. The only Pokemon it's relevant on is Venomoth and Dustox. Silverwind, once again, is a last pick for charge moves. Venomoth and Dustox, it's nice for them because of how slow Confusion generates energy. So that allows it some kind of cheap option to deal bug type damage. But apart from that, not really meta relevant. And then lastly, for new changes or moves is Double Kick and Fairywind. So Double Kick is a 2.66 damage per turn and 4 energy per turn. This is a fighting type move, but I'm going to compare it to ghost type moves, Hex and Shadow Claw. You can see Shadow Claw is 3 and 4, Hex is 2 and 4. You have Double Kick at 2.66 and 4. So Shadow Claw is overpowered. If Shadow Claw wasn't, there to compare with, I would honestly call Double Kick somewhat overpowered. Especially since you can compare it to something like Hex or something like Snarl. Snarl, once again, a good comparison. 1.66 versus 2.66 in damage, or just a little less energy gain. So there's a lot of comparisons we can make, but Double Kick is strong. We can be sure of that. So with this high energy generating fighting fast move, we actually have an alternative to something like counter, especially when Double Kick is this strong. You can consider maybe choosing higher energy generation if your charge moves are better. For example, if I don't want to put this in the universe or into Niantic's mind, but if you put Double Kick on Medicham and you can spam Dynamic Punch and Psychic much more efficiently, or maybe Ice Punch and Dynamic Punch, it gives you so many more options as long as your charge moves are powerful, because you're not actually taking away that much from your fast move damage either. The only problem is that counter is way overpowered, so that's a different story in itself and another conversation to have. But Double Kick will be applied to a lot of Pokemon, including Nidoking, Incineroar, Lopunny, Hitmonlee, Girafarig, and Double. Note that none of these are actually fighting type Pokemon that we care for. Hitmonlee specifically I'm targeting, and none of the other Pokemon really are looking like are desperate enough to want to use Double Kick. And another problem is there's always better options. So I'm going to talk about all of these Pokemon and kind of try to categorize them into what is better and what could actually benefit from it. But starting with Nidoking and Incineroar, we won't actually see too much of those because Nidoking had Fury Cutter, Incineroar has Snarl. These are very similar options. Their viability doesn't increase dramatically because they've had something very similar. Energy generating fast move won't change much because they already have them. Hitmonlee and Lopunny are worse versions of Machamp and Diggersby, to be honest. Hitmonlee can be replaced by Hitmontop or Machamp, Shadow Machamp. All are better options with this very similar moveset. Lopunny, yes, it is a pure normal type. Diggersby is a normal and a ground type, so it means the ground type has more weaknesses, such as water, grass. However, Diggersby deals with grass types fine, in most cases. Lopunny won't be able to deal with grass types any better than Diggersby. Part of the reason why is because Diggersby is extremely bulky. So even though you have extra weaknesses, your bulk will take care of that, will neutralize that. So the reason why I'm comparing Lopunny to Diggersby is because Lopunny has charge moveset of Fire Punch, Hyper Beam, Focus Blast. None of these are anything special or even reasonably affordable. Fire Punch as your bait move and your only consistent charge move energy is going to be a problem when you are not extremely bulky or have an extremely powerful typing. At least Diggersby is extremely bulky, so it can make use of a Fire Punch. Fire Punch is terrible, so that's what I was trying to get at. Girafarig we'll talk about later because it's actually got like three new moves and changes and stuff like that. So we'll talk about that in a bit. That leaves Dubwall, which is fairly bulky at around 110 attack. It can spam Body Slam just like Miltank. And the difference between Dubwall and something like Miltank is that Dubwall has better charge moves like Wild Charge and Payback. However, in most cases, you're still looking at Miltank to perform better with, because the bulk that Miltank has at 105 attack or so will allow Miltank to survive more, to make it to another charge move. And the fact that double kick is going to be non-stab means that even though if you can land a Wild Charge or a Payback and you don't actually have an extremely high attack stat, you probably still won't be able to knock out a Pokemon in a single combo. Double kick to a Wild Charge still won't knock out very much. So Miltank prefers the bulk, the spamminess, kind of like how Lickitung really just leans into just not caring about whether you have good fast moves or not. You're just so bulky, you're just spamming off those charge moves eventually. So Miltank tries to lean into that. So our final new move and change is Periwind. Periwind is identical to Mudshot, Psycho Cut, and Thunder Shock. It is 1.5 damage per energy, 4.5 energy per turn. Galarian Rabdash, Galarian Weezing, Jumpluff, Mawile, Slurpuff, and Florges. This changes the way we can use fairy types because it is completely opposite to Charm. Charm is a strictly fast move, damage, pressure move, and Fairywind is energy based. And you can also see how kind of absurd Charm is, because even if you flip the two numbers, Charm's numbers would be a decent chunk higher. So really not a fan of Charm and, you know, the fairy archetype. However, with Fairywind, that means we have more options. However, this also leaves another problem, because the Charm users that we have are not picking up the fairy type move. The only Charm user that is, you know, using Charm, which also isn't meta relevant, is Slurpuff. However, Fairywind does allow other things to be used. It is as an introduction for more fairy type Pokemon to be viable. So, running down the different Pokemon and categorizing them again, Galarian Rabdash and Jumpluff also won't be much different because they generate an insane amount of energy with their current moveset. So for Jumpluff, I can see it as a minor side grade, being able to deal more anti-fighting type moves, which it kind of struggles with because Aerial Ace is bad, Acrobatics is expensive, so maybe Jumpluff could make use of it. Florges in the Great and Ultra probably wants Vine Whip for the grass type effectiveness. There are a lot of water type Pokemon, ground type Pokemon as well. However, you can mix and match the moveset. There's a lot that you can do with Florges. It has grass type charge moves if you don't want the grass type fast attack. And then in Master League, you're going to want Fairywind for sure, because you want to be able to deal with dragons better. It is a dragon based meta. So the last chunk of Pokemon, Galarian Weezing, Mawile, and Slurpuff. However, they all have pretty mediocre charge movesets, meaning the energy generation that you're getting from Fairywind won't actually be put to great use. So a lot of times you may still want Slurpuff's Charm or Mawile's Fire Fang. Galarian Weezing is going to be the one that benefits from the most because it currently is unplayable with its current moveset. Tackle's also getting an upgrade, like I mentioned earlier. So rather than Galarian Weezing being powerful, I like its typing, but rather than it being powerful, it just has a lot of options, and it can be relevant, especially in, you know, themed metas. That's always where unusable Pokemon can at least have some time to shine. So the attack availability updates. So now we're going to talk about very quickly, speed run through all this stuff, because I've been talking for quite a while now. So Nidorino is learning Thunderbolt. It's in a Great League XL Pokemon, so the likelihood of that is very low. It's somewhat bulky. However, Poison Sting, Poison Fang, now you have Thunderbolt. Great, you have Flying type coverage, specifically Skarmory coverage. You are better at dealing with Skarmory than Nidoqueen is, but Nidoqueen does everything else better, so there's no point really. Never was and still isn't relevant. Same thing with Nidorino with Ice Beam. Ice Beam specifically targets flying type Pokemon, specifically Altaria. You're not really going to be wanting Nidorino for anything, unfortunately, because Ice Beam non-stab is quite weak, and Nidorino has quite a high attack stat, and there was something else I was going to say, but it's bad. Don't worry about it. Nidorino, not relevant. Tentacruel and Lantern with Surf. So Tentacruel can buy you both Great League and XL Ultra League. It is a very bulky Pokemon. What you have here is a very similar Alolan Muck style Pokemon, where you have a solid moveset and solid combinations. Poison Jab is your only viable fast move. Its only other option is Acid. However, Poison Jab has really good neutral coverage. And when you have good neutral coverage, you're going to lose to Steel and Ground regardless, but having good neutral coverage is going to give you the option to play around with your charge moves, especially when you have something like Acid Spray. As we know from using Poison Jab, Acid Spray Hydro Pump Tentacruel before. So when we compare this to Alolan Muck, it has the same thing, but with Alolan Muck, its go-to charge move is Dark Pulse. With Tentacruel, it's Surf, which is 10 energy less. Surf is as energy efficient as Hydro Pump, so for both Tentacruel and Lantern, there's no reason for you to run Hydro Pump. You are using almost the same amount of energy to deal the same amount of damage. So here you're going to have the option to run Poison Jab Surf, Poison Jab Sludge Wave, Poison Jab Surf Acid Spray. All of these are options because actually, including Blizzard. You now actually have the option to run Blizzard because you have a bait move. So not only is Surf solid, a go-to charge move, consistent, deal solid damage, stuff like that, it is also a bait move, your newest, cheapest charge move. So you will win, not that much more than before, but at least you are much, much, much closer to beating Nidoqueen and Stunfisk. And you know, if you use Acid Spray properly, you'd be able to do things that you never be able to do before, and maybe even land a Blizzard on flying types. That's also pretty solid. Who doesn't like that? Lantern is also very bulky. It is only used in Great League. I've seen people XL Ultra League it, but it's not even 2400. It's very bulky though. Like Tentacruel, you're adding consistent and powerful bait charge move to replace Hydro Pump. Lantern still struggles in the meta because there's Swampert, there's Nidoqueen, there's Trevenant. These are all problems, and until they're gone, Lantern's still going to be sad. However, in smaller metas, in, you know, Great League Remix, when all these popular Pokemon get banned, briefly, Lantern will be a monster. This is going to be still, you know, flexible with the option between Water Gun and Spark. I personally preferred Water Gun, but Spark may be a better option now because you have a good, consistent charge move. You needed Spark because you wanted to get the Hydro Pump, but now you have no problem with that, right? So, two very powerful additions to our Water-type Pokemon. Next up, we have two Poison types. Nihilego, Poison Jab is kind of awkward because Rock and Poison is a terrible typing. It's you can't get one for a Great League, so it's only available for Ultra, and you would not want to use this for Master League because of the Steel types and because everything just has a better moveset. You're not going to beat Dragons with this moveset. Dragons are insanely powerful. So what you're good at in the Ultra League is beating Walrein, Talonflame, and Fairy-type Pokemon. It does very little outside of the type advantage it has through its fast charge move and resistances, which means it's very straightforward. You win what you expect, you lose what you expect. It's almost like Bastion, to be honest. So it might be fun to use, but I wouldn't expect too much from it. Haunter is kind of miserable. I don't know why they gave Ice Punch to Haunter. Ice Punch has the same efficiency as Shadow Punch, so unless you're throwing double super effective Ice Punches at something, I don't see the reason for you to ever pick it. It's not better than Haunter's current moveset. Sludge Bomb, Shadow Ball, all deal so much more damage, and you don't need a bait move. Shadow Punch is 35 energy, Ice Punch is 40, so there's no change to Haunter. This does nothing. Next up, we have Marowak with Rock Slide. Too bad Marowak has Mud Slap, because Rock Slide's a good charge move. If you don't have energy generation, you can't make use of it. Camera has an insanely high attack stat. You can use it for Great League, you can use it for XL Ultra League. In this meta, Fire and Ground dual typing allows you to theoretically beat Steel and Fairy type Pokemon. That's it. So you can think of this as a really bad Talonflame. Incinerate being added doesn't do you anything. Actually, no. I expect it to be able to use it in Halloween Cup, but that's it. Don't expect it anywhere else. Next up, we have Dragonair and Dragonite. Both of these Pokemon are getting charge move upgrades. Dragonair is getting a direct upgrade from Wrap to Body Slam. Body Slam is same damage, less energy. It's a side grade because a lot of players still prefer Aqua Tail and Dragon Pulse. If you run Aqua Tail and Body Slam, then you don't have a great nuke. If you're running Body Slam and Dragon Pulse, then you have no answer for Steel type Pokemon. So it's nice. It's not great. Don't expect to do too much. Dragonite, on the other hand, probably hands down the craziest upgrade for this season. Superpower was a move that I believe was teased as a community day move ages ago, and they never actually went through because we voted on what community day we wanted to pick, and so people picked something weird. I don't know. But with Dragon Breath, Dragon Claw, or maybe even Dragon Tail, Dragon Claw, Superpower will be replacing either Hurricane or Outrage or Draco Meteor. All of these moves are resisted by Steel. That's the beauty of it. You can superpower a Steel type Pokemon now, and it adds coverage that no other dragon has, other than maybe something like Kingdra with Octazooka, and no other dragon actually has good enough coverage to be able to steal Steel types in the current meta. So Dragon Claw Superpower makes it better against Steel types, but makes it much worse against Fairy because Fairy also resists fighting. So there are cases where you do still want Hurricane for Fairy type Pokemon. However, Superpower in most cases will give you normal type coverage, fighting Steel type coverage, Rock type coverage. So that's a lot more than just the Fairy, so it's totally worth it. It's viable in Great, Ultra, and Master as well. Probably should mention that. So next up, we have Glycopod. Shadow Claw, Glycopod. Too bad its charge moves suck. I don't know what else to say. It's viable in Great and Ultra, but Aerial Ace, X-Scissor, Aqua Jet, all are abysmal. It's a bad Rockwanid in Great League. Runegregas, it was hyped up a lot. However, it is very similar to Kofagrigus. It has the exact same bulk. It has the addition of the ground typing. Instead of Dark Pulse and Psychic, it has Sand Tomb and Rock Tomb. None of these other charge moves are good. So it's extremely bait dependent if you run Sand Tomb. If you have Rock Tomb, it is a coverage move for some things, but I don't expect this Pokemon to actually have very much play, because like Kofagrigus, it's barely viable. Runegrigus is the same thing, but with slightly worse moveset, to be honest. Next up, we have Ledian. You can give it Psycho Boost, you can give it Wild Charge, it doesn't matter. Bug Bite and Aerial Ace is so bad, unfortunately. Next up, we have Arcanine. Actually, we're talking about all the psychic things, okay? So we're going to speedrun all the psychic things because it's the same move and a lot of Pokemon have it. So Arcanine, psychic things, not that many people use Arcanine, but it might actually allow people to use Arcanine with Fire or Thunder Fang, which it used to run Snarl before. When you're spamming Snarl, you're spamming Wild Charges, but now you have a bit of an option. It's still a bad Pokemon, but yeah. Espeon, it's got the highest attack stat of any evolution, I think, and it's unplayable. Confusion, Psychic Fangs, just play Girafarig. I promise you it's better. Manectric with Psychic Fangs is very similar to Arcanine. However, I don't think you want Psychic Fangs because the beauty of Manectric, and even though you're memeing, is the fact that it has really, really good charge moves already. You're not replacing one of these insanely good coverage charge moves for something that you need to spam and chip away at slowly because of how high your attack stat is. You will not survive very long, so make sure you make use of that energy right away. So stick with your current charge moves if you are using Manectric. And then Swoobat with Psychic Fangs is just a Psychic Crobat. You are losing Crobat's Psychic weakness to be extremely bad against Dark and Ghost. No thank you. And then last but not least, we have Girafarig and Steelix. Girafarig not only gets Psychic Fangs, it's also getting a buff on Tackle. It is going to get Double Kick. It has a lot. Tackle is... so I don't know why Girafarig's getting a special treatment, but the thing that does the heavy lifting for Girafarig won't be Tackle, Double Kick, Psychic Fangs, or anything. It's the fact that it is a Psychic type that resists normal. It is so unique, just like a Rangaroo, that it has played only because of that. However, even though you get all these move upgrades, none of them actually synergize particularly well. Oranguroo's moveset does synergize somewhat decently, but I don't know if Girafarig is going to be center meta because of these changes, because something that a normal Psychic still struggles with is other fighting types, funny enough. Especially if you're not running Confusion or if you're facing a Medicham, stuff like that. However, you have awkward wins now. Not consistent, but you do have awkward wins against Registeel, Walrein, Trevenant. It's weird, but it's welcomed. That's all I can say for now. Steelix, as much as I want to hype up this Pokemon, its fast move is still really slow compared to other Steel types. Steel Ground is the same as Galarian Stunfisk, and because of how slow you are, you do not beat Registeel or Stunfisk still. You cannot rely on nuking other Pokemon with Earthquake. So Psychic Fangs, what Psychic Fangs does is it allows Steelix to be more like Nidoqueen, brute forcing its way through neutral matchups. But it's still very awkward because you're a very bulky Pokemon and you won't be able to tear through other things. So the only potential, like, you know, true Psychic Fang Steelix that I can see making a grand, you know, change to the meta is if Steelix was a Shadow. That would allow it to tear through things. So it's a very awkward moveset, however, it does allow it some level of consistency. You're going to want to use it with Crunch more than you prefer it with Earthquake, because Earthquake doesn't flip much. It's still expensive, it's still going to take a while to get to, and you might not be able to hit it unshielded as well. So, yeah, Steelix is kind of awkward as well. So, a quick summary on what I think about the entire meta and how the movesets have been added is that most buffs and nerfs to the moves have been reasonable, with two of the moves being added, adding a lot of variety. Both, moves are energy heavy, which contrasts charm and counter. However, a lot of these Pokemon aren't actually put on Pokemon with charm and counter, so it doesn't directly compete with those moves, and I wish it had, so that we can move away from some of the fixed movesets and archetypes that we currently have. I would I think that half of the additions to Pokemon are actually useless because some of them are redundant, such as Incineroar, Double Kick, Snarl. You're not going to get extra steel type coverage because you have fire type moves anyways, and you are an energy based charge move user anyways. So the things that I am excited to try out though, because half of the moves are actually useful and half of the additions are actually useful, is Dunsparce, Miltank, and Steelix. Actually, as well as Tentacruel. These are Pokemon that very much fit my playstyle and Pokemon that I've anticipated to be able to use them a long time ago. Even though we didn't receive nerfs to things like Poison Fang or Shadow Claw, the increase of normal type Pokemon and Psychic Fangs will actually reduce the viability of those Pokemon a little bit, balancing it out just a tad. And then the pillars of the meta, we have the tanks, the flyers, the fighters. So Steels, Ghost have replaced flyers for the time being, and the fighters are still here. But they still remain the same because you will not be able to replace Registeel and Stunfisk with Steelix just because you had Psychic Fangs. Your normal types are not better at, dealing with flying type Pokemon. Miltank and Dunsparce is not that much better. Yeah. And then the fighters have been pretty much untouched. So, yeah. And none of the Fairywind users actually have good enough charge moves to be able to compete against Ghost type. So there's that as well. So yeah, 45 minutes of me talking. Hope this helps. I will put this in, written form. I have 9 pages of notes. So I will be posting this on Twitter. I will add a link to it. I will probably add a link to the description of this video as well. So if you are interested in note form, paper form, written form, whatever you want to call it, I will have that available as soon as possible. Peace.